Richard, what have you got for us this week, sir?
I got a pretty simple one that I have a couple of questions, but the one I don't want us to dive too far into it without some other members kicking here. But how do you guys inventory and track your tools? Because um, I'm not too sure if a lot of techs know this, but a lot of shops that you may work in, and this goes for technicians across North America, a lot of shops that you work in, there is zero insurance on that on your box and then what the contents inside, right? So a lot of the times you got to carry your own insurance. You may be beneficial to work at a shop that has uh, shop insurance, especially if they have built-ins. If they're supplying the storage, my opinion is that the shop should be supplying insurance then. But my question is, how going forward, how do you guys maintain the inventory of your tools? Right, I have all my receipts from Snap-on, Amazon, Macco, the trucks I visit. I have digital copies of all my receipts. I have all my serial numbers from all my large things like my electric impacts, all my electric tools, and my batteries because of the serial numbers on it. My torque wrenches, anything that has a serial number on it is inputted. It's uploaded to a file on. It's all in an Excel spreadsheet for me, and then I have and it's on the cloud, so I don't have to worry about if a hard drive crashes or anything like that. I update it whenever I make a new tool purchase. I put the tool that I bought, and like, is it Snap-on? It's basically like writing a vehicle down, year, make, model, how much it was at purchase time, and date of purchase and serial number. And then from there, I take pictures of my box semi-annually. So twice a year, I open a drawer, snap a photo, close that drawer, open another drawer, snap a photo, and then all my cabs and everything like that. I take photos of everything, take a picture of the box, open it up, picture of the contents, close it, and then where it is and everything. Right. So that's my. I just want to know what your guys' strategies are or plans are, and then yeah, and I've never had to carry insurance just because every shop I've worked at has had some type of insurance that covers the totality of my tools. But I know there's guys out there that you can add it on. I know in Alberta at least, you can add on an underwriter to your home insurance and have your tools covered. And I don't know how that would be in Ontario, but I know in Alberta you can. But Alberta is all private insurance, so it varies. The cost varies by insurance company. And yeah, but that's one thing I want to touch on is we touched on that a few shows ago where how much do you have invested in tools, and then in the unfortunate event that something happens and the shop burns down, you know how you got to stay ahead of that and keep on top of it. So how do you guys track your tools?
I, I'm bad. I haven't done an inventory in probably well over a decade. Easily well over a decade. I used to take pictures of everything like you said. I think the last time when I left the bench the first time when I left the automotive bench, I took pictures of everything that I had, absolutely everything. But I took actual pictures, and I have no idea where those pictures are anymore. It's been far too long. I know I had to take pictures of the shop. So when I came off the bench, um, and when I came out of mobile repair, and I put everything away, and that's when I thought I was going to stop again. I had to take pictures of my shop here at home because we had to get secondary building insurance because we've got my shop out back's 1,200 square feet. So that's an addition to the house. So we had to do a second building add-on insurance bit to be able to do content insurance in the second building. 50, 60, $70,000 worth of stuff just in tools, irrespective of my BMW that was out in the shop at the time. Now it's gone, but now I've got my new bike out there. So it's like an extra $1,500 a year to have the secondary building insurance that includes tools and stuff. But I don't have, like, it's been a long, long, long time since I've had receipts quick to hand on any of those. They're long gone from that side of things. So for you to have that much detail in those, I'm jealous, and realistically speaking, that's what we should all have. I don't think there's any better way to do it other than maybe when you take those pictures, uploading it to that file, that cloud file where all of your receipts and stuff are, having it in an itemized spreadsheet where you can click the link and say, hey, these are the tools that are in this drawer. This is how much this, and then your make model, so to speak, and how much you purchased and when. Have a literal link to the picture of it in your toolbox. That would be the next level stuff. But that is super organized. That is way more than I think I'm capable of doing, at least at this present stage. But I think that's more goal set. What are we doing? I think the safe answer is the majority of us are going to say we haven't done anything.
Yeah.
We have. Do you have now? You said every shop you've worked at had insurance where it would cover your tool loss. I haven't worked at a single shop that said they would. Their content insurance would not cover tools. At least any tools that weren't owned by the shop. So if I wanted tool insurance, I had to get it myself. Stephan, what about you?
Well,
Does your shop cover it?
Pretty sure we will. I mean, might have to actually find out. To be honest, we've never had a concern, I guess. But, I mean, I don't think there's a better way that you can itemize it like Richard described. Taking pictures is the easiest, uploading them to a spreadsheet. I think it's also good for some of the new kids coming in, or even some of the new techs. You can give them a sheet of, hey, this is what you're going to need to work on, maybe this particular brand that you might not already have, and you can jumpstart an apprentice toolbox pretty quickly that way, just by plugging in about a quarter of every drawer that you have. So, I mean, that's super organized. I think we could all learn something from that, no question. Especially even mobile service guys, they probably need to have their organization up even better so that they know what's on the truck the day they're going out to a job site. And maybe they need to grab an extra tool that's not on the truck right now, and on the swing doors in the back you can have a whole list of everything that you got, and maybe today you need a bigger rotary hammer, or you need a larger piece of equipment, and it'd be a lot easier to categorize. But I've definitely fallen off, no question. My toolbox is an absolute nightmare and disaster, much like my mind. So it's just it's really just intrinsically inherent that I got a lot going on by the shape of the toolbox. It's in disarray. So usually it's organized when I'm a little bit less stressed, but for now it's going to be organized chaos is what I'll call it. I know where everything is. I know when something's missing. It's somewhat ridiculous to even think that you can look at a pile of bolts and be like, I got a socket missing. Where's that shape?
Fair. I'm willing to bet I've seen Marshall's toolbox, his toolbox, aka his rolling toolbox, aka his service truck with everything that's on it. I've seen it when it's clean. She be organized, right? And you don't function too well when it's not organized, because I know you get upset when it's not organized.
Well, I mean, so I do the same thing that Richard does, except for I don't have mine itemized in an Excel sheet, but I take pictures of everything that's in my truck quarterly, and then I go through and I take pictures. I also have I have a toolbox at the shop, and then I have a toolbox at a customer location that I work out of, so that I don't always have to be pulling stuff out of my truck. So I essentially have 3 sets of tools. I have a full set of tools at the shop, full set of tools at a customer location, and I have a full set of tools in my truck. That being said, though, sometimes, like, I only have one air hammer, right? I keep that in my truck. So, that always floats around my truck. It's always with me wherever I go. I have most of my big impacts and stuff. I only have one of, or a lot of my cordless stuff I only have one of, but some things I do have multiples of because it's easier. Just depends. But anyway, what I do is I take pictures of everything quarterly, because I do buy tools regularly. So every quarter I'll go through and take pictures of where everything's at. So that way, say my truck got stolen tomorrow, I would at least have a fairly recent inventory of everything that's in my service truck based off of pictures. Mm-hmm. And then I like to try to buy a majority of my tools from one dealer. That way it's easier. Like, I could go to my Snap-on dealer and say, hey, I need a print off of everything I've ever purchased. Mm-hmm. ever.
And you get pretty close to what that list actually is.
And I'd be pretty close. Of course, I've probably lost 1 or 2 sockets here and there, and those have been replacements, but that would show up as a double, you know what I mean, on the receipt. But I could get pretty darn close. And then everything that I purchase, like say from Harbor Freight, those are all digital receipts that they send me, and those are all stored to my Google Drive, which is in the cloud, and the pictures of my trucks, all pictures of my tools are all saved in my Google Drive as well. So I do something similar to Richard. I just haven't gone the extra mile of marking it all out. Probably too scared to know exactly everything I
We came to
purchased.
the same conclusion a couple weeks back. We talked about how much we spent.
Yeah.
But this is a.
But
this
that
is,
being
this
said,
will be
like,
a quick, any service leader that's listening, you heard Marshall just say, "I've got a toolbox essentially rolling on my service truck. I've got a toolbox at the main shop that I take customer trucks to," and because he does what he does and the way he does it, they have large fleet customers where they have lots of vehicles. So instead of you having to carry extra stuff and take stuff out of the truck, you've got another toolbox. That's three effectively. 2 of them are about 80% of what you use on a day-to-day basis. Not 100%, but 80%. But that's 3 times the amount of tools that the average automotive tech's going to have. 3. So anybody out there looking for someone who's wanting to crush in mobile, they're spending potentially 2 to 3 times the amount of tools as the average automotive tech is. And when we're talking about and we're talking about tool organization, that's something to take into account of a service leader when you go to cut that paycheck.
Yeah, and like, listen, our job is 90% is based off of our ability to do things quickly and efficiently. So, what happened is like I'd be at a customer, that big fleet shop, and I'd be toting stuff out of my truck to fix something. I'm working there 10 hours. At the end of 10 hours, the last thing I wanted to do was take all that crap that I just used all day long and pack it all back into my truck. It just, and who pays for that time for me to go back and forth between my truck? To be more efficient, it was easier to I just called the Snap-on guy and I said, "Hey, I need a toolbox here tomorrow." And he's like, "All right, what do you want? What color?" So I had him drop it off. And that same day, he said, "Hey, I'll be over there on Tuesday." I said, "All right, cool." Monday night when I got done for the day, I drove my service truck over to Harbor Freight, and I spent about $4,000, and I just filled the whole back of my service truck up with everything possible that I could think of that I might need for that third set of tools. So then I filled it full of sockets and wrenches and anything extra that I might need. And then there's certain things that I like to have that are brand specific. Like I prefer Snap-on ratchets. So I told the Snap-on guy, throw me a couple of 3/8 ratchets in there, different lengths. Throw me a couple of this. Throw me a couple of those. Those are specific items that I have to have that are Snap-on because I like the way they are. I'm more efficient with them. So toolbox showed up. That day I worked out of my truck all day long, and at the end of the day I packed that toolbox slam full of tools on my time, and then I was ready to rock and roll.
Nice.
So
it's safe to say some of us are better organized than others, Richard. It's safe to say that some of us are getting detailed like you, and you can get more detailed, but some of us are not. And I think this is maybe a wake-up call to some of us who aren't as organized and aren't as detailed. Love to know what anybody else is listening to. Like, are you detailed like Richard, or are you not detailed like me? I have not recently organized my stuff. My shop out back is an absolute fucking disaster, and I hate it every time I walk outside right now. But the focus is, helping Russell and Rick at Fix After Marketing right now, and try and doing everything I can to make content for you guys to help you guys improve your days. So, if I spend 20 minutes out in the shop, it's probably to lube the chain on my bike. That's probably what I'm going to do right now. And maybe come winter time and, the heart of...
Do you prefer wax or oil?
Oil, for sure.
Just curious.
But we're going to see how that goes. Now, my old power sports boss, he liked wax for certain bikes. He liked oil for certain bikes. But at the end of the day, It's
Yeah.
it's preference, and as long as you're doing it frequently, like his mantra was, you go for a ride, you wax your chain. You go for a ride, you oil your chain. You go for a
Yeah.
ride, wax your chain. You go for every single time, whether it's for 5 kilometers or 500 kilometers. When you're done, you go to put it away. The best time to get it lubed up is right after your ride because it's nice and hot, so it'll get everywhere.
Yeah. That's when I did mine. I was going to touch on insurance real quick though. So what I do, Richard, is I worked at a shop that needed an itemized list because they did cover. And then I've worked at shops that only would pay like a retroactive amount. So based on the length of time that you owned the tool, they would pay you a percentage of replacement. So because of that, I got my own insurance. For a long time, I was renting and I did it through my renter's insurance, but now I do it through my homeowner's insurance. But yeah, that's how I've always done mine. And then like right now, I'm insured for 100K. So
Yep.
Yeah, like when I
for a
worked.
full replacement of everything.
So when I worked at the first Ford dealer, when we were bought out by the large group, they came in and asked us estimated valuation, and then based it off that. The GM store was the same way, and then Nissan wanted an actual itemized list, and that's when I started taking photos of everything and itemizing it like crazy. And then I've just rolled it over to GM. The nice thing was taking all those pictures, moving from, because Nissan was built-ins, GM was built-ins, doing that move between, I was able to set up my toolbox at the new store the same way my box was set up at Nissan. So, and it didn't take me,
Yeah.
3.5 weeks of relearning where all my shit was, that's everybody knows that's a pain in the ass.
Oh my goodness.
But I feel like it's an important thing to note that like some insurances will only pay you for a percentage of what it is to cost to replace your tool. So going forward for the other people listening, if you're just now thinking about something like this, you should reach out to your service leader and say, hey, if the shop burned down tomorrow, what does that look like for me? Because I've heard some horror stories and I need my tools to make a living. And if I needed to replace them tomorrow, how quickly could I get a check to get my tools replaced? That's why I went with my own in addition to what the shop offers.
Yeah.
Because they may only give me 40% of the value of my tools, but my insurance company will cut me a check in 3 days. I'll be back to rocking and rolling. So those are things that you need to know. I feel like as a mechanic,
Yeah, big time due diligence.
tools are vital for us to go.
Big time due diligence. Yes, we can do a lot of stuff without tools, and you're going to be able to get away with certain things. You're going to be able to, if the shop burnt down, everybody in the shop, there's no tools to borrow from, right? It's if a shop burns down, in all likelihood, everybody in that shop is finding a new job somewhere else, unless you happen to be lucky enough to work in a group where they can disperse you guys, to another store in the group or whatever the case may be. But that might be not as easy as going down to the street, going from a Honda store to a Lexus store, or a Honda store to a Chevy store, or whatever the case may be. You might have to go cross province, cross state to go to another store in the group. It might not be exactly that easy, and you still got to figure out tools, right? Sometimes we're in a circumstance where tools are just about as hard to come by as parts for the cars we're fixing sometimes, right? Some of the stuff you acquired 15, 20 years ago is not the same kind of tools that you're going to buy today. Either the quality, type, quantity, description, whatever the case may be. You go to the length that Richard is going through for organization, you know exactly what the serial number is. You can pull it up by database and they go, oh yes, we can, there's one of those still in the warehouse. We can still get that tool. Not the tool that it's quote unquote upgraded to, or whatever the case may be. But this is kind of a wake up call for anybody out there that's on the bench that has never technically thought about insurance in terms of their tools, that may assume that they have insurance on the tools because they're in a building that's insured. Just because the building's insured does not mean your tools are. It doesn't mean that they're insured the way you expect them to be insured. Doesn't mean that they're insured for things that you expect them to be insured for. Marshall mentioned, what happens if the shop burns down? Well, what happens if the shop's flooded? right? What happens if the shop's flooded? Yeah, all your ratchets, your wrenches, anything that's solid steel or whatever the case be that isn't coated, yeah, they're gonna rust. It's gonna be shit, especially if it's salt water and not fresh water. Anything that happens to be electronic is fucked and gone. You know, if the shop doesn't have flood insurance and it only has fire insurance, you might get screwed. And secondly, mentioned in there, you know, it only covers a percentage of the tools. You know, some insurance only covers a percentage of the tools. Well, you can't buy 80% of a wrench. And good luck trying to find wrenches that you need specifically at a moment's notice that's used that is potentially 80% of the value it is new. That doesn't exist on a expeditious timeline. If you need tools because all of a sudden the shop burns down, you need tools today. Not tomorrow, not in 3 weeks, not in 3 months. You need tools today. That is our living that they are talking about. So do your due diligence, folks. That's a great question, Richard. That's a great question. We all need to be doing our due diligence on, especially, forget about an organization for a second. Do your due diligence on insurance on your tools. That's a big deal. Awesome. Okay.